Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following the latest gaming hardware. I'm Ryan McCaffrey, filling in the host chair this week for Damon, and I'm joined as always by Max Scoville, host of Podcast Beyond, and our friend Logan Plant, host of Nintendo Voice Chat. Well, guys, we're here to talk about the Nintendo Switch 2 today. It has had a very successful first year. Estimated sales so far, actually, technically the first year is not even over 17 million units. So it is off to a fast start. And it's doing it without the A-listers like Mario and Zelda. But Logan, we had some, I won't say welcome, because it was very much not welcome pricing news this week. It almost never is when it comes to pricing news with the Nintendo. Yoshi and the Mysterious Book is going to be $60 digital, $70 physical. And it looks like physical copies are going to be more than digital from here on out. So let's just start there. Logan, give me your thoughts on Nintendo continuing to push the pricing envelope in the direction that gamers do not want to see it go.
Yeah, it's really tough, and I think they've been doing everything over the last year to not raise the price of the console itself here in the United States. We saw accessories go up, controllers and amiibo. We saw the Switch 1 go up. We saw it to the point where all that hadn't gone up was the Switch 2 and its games. And now Switch 2 physical games are going up. So digital and the console have remained the same. And now digital physical split has been a thing in every other region except North America since the launch of the Switch 2. So now they're just kind of in alignment. And what's going to be interesting is to see the next first party game this affects. Because right now this is a 60-70 split. But Yoshi, I think, is just a discounted game already. So for something like Fire Emblem or the next Mario or Zelda or whatever it is, I kind of think that's going to be a 70 digital, 80 physical split. So I think that you should brace yourself for that. But it's really tough. I mean, you never want to see the price go up, but it's just kind of the trends across the entire industry right now.
Max, do you think this gives the likes of Sony almost permission to come in and try and do the same thing?
I'm going to say something a bit controversial here. I think that physical editions should always be more expensive. You're getting a physical thing. Like, I think that, admittedly, video games should probably be more expensive just in terms of how much money and time it takes to actually make them. But when you have to physically put them on a thing, on a disc, on a cartridge, whatever it is, and package it and ship it and send it halfway across the world, it's crazy to me that doesn't cost more already and that hasn't cost more already. And in the case of Switch 2, I mean, we've seen the whole thing about the virtual card versus actual cartridge. And are you buying a cartridge that has the files on it, or are you buying a little handshake that tells the system that you own it? If they're charging more for the actual cartridges, I would hope you're actually getting the game on there and not just a code in a box or what have you. But we're seeing the price of basically everything going up, especially in the electronics, chips, RAM department. Cartridges are expensive. They're the reason the N64 was had such expensive games compared to the competition with the PlayStation. Like, optical media is fairly disposable. It's fairly cheap to churn out. And a cartridge, that's a different story, especially with a proprietary little thing like a Switch 2 cart. Yeah, I mean, it's no one wants to pay more for things, but if you're going to be paying more for things, at least you're getting a physical thing. The flip side of this would be nice if digital things were cheaper as opposed to just physical things getting more expensive. But yeah, I could very much see Sony following suit. I feel like on that side of things, again, games are so massive at this point that when you buy a game on a disc, you're not getting the game on a disc. You're getting a file that starts a download basically. So yeah, I think we're going to see more digital exclusive stuff in general, but yeah, whatever the bad version of a rising tide raises all ships. A rising cartridge price raises all game prices.
A growing category hurricane swallows all houses. Sure. I don't know. I'm just making it up on the fly here. But speaking of exclusives, Logan, let's talk about what's coming. So year one of the Switch 2 went pretty well, or is going. It's still going for a couple more months. Still going pretty well on the software side. Mario Kart World being the big day one launch title as a Switch 2 exclusive. Estimates have it at 14 million sold, so very nearly a 1-to-1 attach ratio. Of course, many of us, like myself, bought it bundled with our system, so it really was 1-to-1. But Donkey Kong followed that, and Bananza, and then a few other small, like Metroid Prime 4, I can't say is smaller, but it was a cross-gen
It's much
game.
smaller.
It didn't seem to, I don't know, quite set the world on fire in terms of blowing people away. Like, it got great reviews. You gave it an excellent review for IGN, but what do we need from year 2, and what might reasonably be expected in year 2 for Switch 2?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think year 1 has kind of been two sides of the story, depending where you fall. I think like hardcore Nintendo only fans have been served incredibly well. I think they had the big stuff like Mario Kart DK and Pokopia. You mentioned some smaller, more niche things that have really small, fervent fan bases like Kirby Air Riders, and cool third party stuff we've never gotten before, like Resident Evil Requiem. Like that's amazing on Switch 2. But there is still this kind of big thing hanging over everyone's head that we haven't seen. What is Link going to look like in his first big Switch 2 3D Zelda adventure? And what is Mario going to do in his first 3D Switch 2 adventure? So I think in year 2, even just a tease. I mean, if Nintendo holds a June Nintendo Direct or whatever they do, whenever they have the next one, and we see a 30-second clip of Link looking over a hill and it says The Legend of Zelda now in development for Switch 2, I think that's all you need to really change the narrative. Because if you look at kind of the software roadmap of what we've got Fire Emblem coming out later this year. That's a follow-up to the best-selling strategy RPG of all time. We got Pokemon Winds and Waves next year, the 10th generation of Pokemon, which will be one of the best-selling games on the console. So they have stuff in the pipeline, but it really is the heavy hitters, Mario and Zelda. People just want to see. We know they're working on them. And I think 3D Zelda is the one we're going to see first. I think we're going to see what 3D Zelda looks like before we see what 3D Mario looks like. And I do think we could see a look at it this year. Nintendo typically announces 3D Zelda 2 to 3 years out of when it actually comes out. It is the main franchise they do this with that they show us very, very early. So yeah, I think there's a shot you see what Aonuma and Fujibayashi are cooking up in Kyoto for Link on Switch 2 this year.
Now, I wrote an opinion piece early this year, which will probably age badly, but speaking from the heart and thinking that it really feels like this is the year for 3D Mario. We've waited 8, this will be 9 years if October comes and goes without a 3D Mario game. So do you think we might see a tease of 3D Zelda first, but actually get 3D Mario in our hands first?
I have no idea what to think about the next 3D Mario. I don't think it's coming this year. I really, really don't. I could be wrong about that, but I think Donkey Kong Bonanza was your 3D Mario, and people just aren't happy with that answer. I think they had the A-team on it. I think you read interviews and they talk about how much it was influenced by Odyssey and the last thing they worked on, and they've talked about how much what they learned making Bonanza could influence the next 3D Mario. So they're no doubt deep into production on a 3D Mario, but I don't think it's this year. And I kind of been thinking fall 2027 for 3D Mario. So I think next year could be huge with Pokemon earlier in the year and Mario later in the year. That just leaves the question wide open for this fall. And I don't know what the answer is. I look at the second year of Switch 1 and year 2 was pretty barren. You got Smash Brothers in December, and that was the huge kind of thing that redeemed that year. But otherwise, it was a lot of B-tier stuff. It was Mario Tennis Aces. It was little things like that. And this year started with Mario Tennis Fever. Like, I kind of think this fall could be a Luigi's Mansion, or just I don't think it's going to be the big AAA tentpole people want as much as I would like it to be. But yeah, I think Mario comes out next year.
So, Max, we're talking Mario, we're talking Zelda, Metroid just shipped. It almost seems like, do you think that Nintendo needs a new big franchise to add to the rotation here? Because the last one was arguably Splatoon, which is certainly not on the Mario Zelda tier, and before that, arguably Pikmin.
Mm-hmm. No, it's weird to see they kind of shot themselves in the foot in a very good way with all the games that came on Switch 1, which were kind of the definitive version, like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which again was a Wii U version, and Breath of the Wild, which is also a Wii U game. But the Switch really took a bunch of games and kind of refined them into their ultimate versions. In the case of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, really, how do you make something that tops Tears of the Kingdom or something that tops Mario Kart 8 Deluxe? I mean, they tried that with World, not quite there yet. At some point, we're probably going to get another Smash, but how do you top that? They've kind of painted themselves into a corner on that front. So the alternative, again, is revisiting existing franchises, dusting off stuff, maybe the sort of second stringer B tier, if you will, like something like Kirby Air Riders, or you make something new entirely, which again is a bigger swing. In the case of something like ARMS, a comically big swing. That one I feel like didn't really quite land the punch there, but yeah, I'm interested in seeing what Nintendo does. I'm going to go ahead and say we're definitely going to see a 3D Zelda in 2027, except we're going to see it in movie theaters because Nintendo is diversifying its
real D3D.
Its IP. We're getting a brand new 3D Mario if you rent the 3D glasses when it hits theaters next month. We've got theme parks opening up left and right. Nintendo is putting its green speckled eggs in other baskets and really, reaping the benefits. And the fact that the Switch 2 is selling as well as it is, despite not having any of these big, the main mascot characters front and center is huge. And the fact that it's getting stuff like Resident Evil Requiem and it's getting Pragmata next month, they might not look quite as good as the Xbox Series X and PS5 versions of the games, but it's getting those games, which is very exciting. And that's definitely going to keep the lights on. So Nintendo has the luxury to not have to scramble to put out a new 3D Mario or a new 3D Zelda. They can take their time and figure out what to do with it. And when they do pop up and say, hey, here's what we've been working on, that's definitely going to get people's attention. And it's also probably going to be a great showcase of what the Switch 2 can do. I think right now we're in a kind of an odd spot where the Switch 2 didn't really come out with a bunch of bells and whistles. It is in many ways kind of a super Switch. I still think they should have called it that. But, in the same way that the Wii U looked more like an accessory than a new system, this kind of looks like a slightly newer model of the same system. And you see people who are frustrated that Pokopia isn't coming to Switch 1, but not fully grasping how much more is going on under the hood and how much more powerful a machine this is. And, with enough time in development, I think we're going to see some first-party Nintendo stuff that truly takes advantage of this and does some really incredible stuff with the hardware. And, I'm hoping that it's a Mario or a Zelda or something like that, but it might be something else entirely. And yeah, I don't know. I guess it's exciting to wait and see. It's nice to kind of have that these surprises waiting in the tall grass, if you will.
Well, we've got a new Yoshi game coming up, which will be at the tail end of the first full year of Switch 2. And so we wanted to ask you in this week's poll, what's the best Switch 2 exclusive so far? You can vote on IGN.com when this episode goes live. Your choices include Pokémon Pokopia, Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bananza, Kirby Air Riders, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, and Mario Tennis Aces. Now let's give you the results of last week's poll before we say goodbye on this week's show. Will you play Starfield on PS5? That was what we wanted to know on last week's show. Your choices were, well, no, not interested, and that took 54% of the vote. So an interesting result there. Followed by, at number 2, no, I already played it on Xbox and PC, was 27.5% of the vote. And then finally, yes, I've been waiting for this port, was just about 18% of the vote. All right, before we go, it's time for a brand new month of gaming. Jump into the Humble March Choice Bundle while you still can here as March winds down and score an amazing lineup of titles. Right now, you can grab Tempest Rising, Chants of Sonar, Sworn, Etrian Odyssey 3 HD, Bread and Fred, 0 Hour, Small and Survive the Wild, and Hard West 2. This all supports the Malala Fund, an organization working for a world where every girl can learn and lead by breaking down the barriers that hold back more than 130 million girls out of school today. Head to humblebundle.com through April 7th to start playing today. And that's our show for this week. Thank you very much to Max and Logan. Thank you to everybody working behind the scenes to make this show possible. My name's Ryan, and we'll be back next week with more of the latest gaming hardware. We'll see you then.
This episode of Next Gen Console Watch was produced by Damon Hadfield, Jobert Atienza, and Sam Claiborne. Damon is also the host, and Max Scoville and Ryan McCaffrey serve as regular panelists. Technical direction is by Jobert Atienza, with technical production by Marian Franzen and Amir Rakib. Audio engineering is handled by Amir Rakib. Post-production editing is by Jobert Atienza, and graphic design is by Justin Vachon. Next Gen Console Watch is an IGN production and part of the Geek Media Network.